Bleach Revisited. I am Karker Gold, your host of this series in which we will be reading every single chapter of the Bleach manga, providing critical analysis of the art and narrative, as well as personal response to each of these chapters. We'll also be discussing how the individual chapter connects to the rest of the series as a whole. As usual, we begin these videos with a reading of the chapter that we are currently discussing for the episode. This is Chapter 128, The Great Joint Struggle Union. Considering the following, while in the custody of the Ryoka, the prisoner was coerced, both mentally and physically, into following their orders. Therefore, I ask for leniency, Captain Unohana of the 4th Company. That's the report of the arresting officer, Captain Ukitake of the 13th Company. Thank you. But the Ryoka you assisted caused serious damage. Given your position, your complicity cannot be overlooked. Do you understand? 14th Advanced Relief Team Leader and 4th Company 7th Seat, Hanataro Yamada. Bleach, Chapter 128, The Great Joint Struggle Union. This is Kira Izuru. General Relief Station, 4th Company. Underground Relief Cell, number 075. What is this place? Wait, I'm alive? Why? Hi, you awake? What? Whoa! Who are you? A burglar? No. What would I steal from an invalid in a jail cell? It's me! Ganju? You're alive. Good. You didn't seem all that strong, so I thought, oh yeah? Well, I thought the same thing about you. But why would they treat our injuries? We're intruders and their enemies. There's no reason the Soul Reapers would patch us up. There's been a new development. Chad? I heard the guards talking. One of the captains was murdered inside the Seirete. They don't know who did it, but the Seirete is the Soul Reaper compound. As Ryoka, we're the prime suspects. So we're being kept alive for questioning. Yeah. If my spirit energy wasn't sealed by these handcuffs, I could get us out of here with my Seppa, my rock wave. So, these sealed our spirit energy. Wait, even without these, my powers are. In any case, we're alive, but we're locked up, and so is our spirit energy. Still, one thing's for sure. If that enemy doesn't want us dead, then the others are probably still alive. If we're in here, then Warihime, with her lack of combat skills, has probably been captured too. That leaves Mr. Yorichi and Ichigo. I'm going to wait for Ichigo. He'll definitely come here. Until then, all we can do is recover from our injuries and prepare for the next fight. Let's wait for Ichigo. Ah! Crap! That's 18. That's it. The real one. We shaped like this. That was feeble. I told you, Ichigo, all of the blades here are pieces of your spirit. This is a test to find the one piece that was made for fighting. That one was a piece of your fragile spirit trying to rely on me. Until you can tell the difference, don't even speak about Bankai. Now then, try again, Ichigo. You don't have time to be resting on your knees. I know that. Boy, was I surprised. I didn't expect to get picked up by you, Assistant Captain Kusajishi. I, Makizo Aramaki, couldn't be happier. What else was I going to do? She's a Ryoka, like Ichigo, so her spiritual pressure was like his. When I went to check it out, there you were. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Maki Maki! Maki Maki! It's been 10 years since you took me under your wing. How time flies. Maki Maki? Ha! What a weird name. You gave me that nickname yourself! So, what do you think, Orihime? She's so beautiful. Is that jerk Ichigo still alive? It's hard to say. I don't know. Don't ask stupid questions, Ikaku. He's still alive. I know he is. He's alive and trying to get even stronger. Sounds like fun to me. I'll help you, girl. If I stick with you, I have a feeling I'll see Ichigo again. Please, if you play for us, I'll give you my favorite magazine, Bikini Busters. One look at it and your eyes will pop out of your head. And that is it for Bleach, Chapter 128, the Joint Brief Struggle Union. It's absolutely not that. This is not the title for 128. We'll get there. When we get there, what is it? Is the Great Joint Struggle Union? It's not Joint Brief Struggle Union. I got that's in most of the words, you know. Most of them were in there. Anyway, Great Joint Struggle Union. I believe that this title. Well, let's preface here. Let's say that's it for the reading. We're getting into our analysis of the art and narrative, as well as a bit of my personal response, right? And so immediately jumping into this chapter, we're coming from the transitory of the previous chapter where we had all these different characters that are moving towards this new horizon, right? The death of tomorrow, right? The beginning of the death of tomorrow, the beginning of the death of tomorrow. So this threshold is kind of being breached. But meanwhile, we do have a couple of other characters that are still in their cells, notably. And those are the other characters that we've kind of left off on for a while. So we're getting to visit and see where a lot of characters are in this chapter, and we're seeing how a new alliance is kind of being formed. And so, therefore, the Great Joint Struggle Union, I believe, is meant to kind of refer to our union of characters of Uryu, Ganju, so our Ryoka, right? Uryu, Ganju, Orihime, and Chad. Basically, everyone that's not Yorichi and Ichigo, all four of those Ryoka, they're all injured. They're all not in a great state, but they're going to be teaming up with, it seems, Ikaku, Yumachika, and Yachiru, as well as Zaraki of the 11th Division, because Zaraki is very interested in figuring out where Ichigo's at and meeting up with Ichigo again. I think the idea is, one, Zaraki, I don't know how much he wants to help Ichigo rescue Rukia, I don't know how much that's clear, but he does want to go and interact with Ichigo again. He does want to continue to perhaps to fight. And so, our other characters might take advantage of that to get out of jail. The other big thing, of course, is that they might be considering actually just standing against the Soul Society in this case. We'll get to it when we get to it. However, I feel like this title, Great Joint Struggle Union, also kind of refers to not just that union, but kind of everybody who is starting to struggle against the Soul Society and join together in these different ways. But it also could be kind of an allusion to Ichigo and the struggles that he is having, and the idea of him working in synchronicity, whatever, working alongside Zangetsu. Right, they would kind of unionize in that way, and so the like harmony of people working in tandem is consistently going to be something that we see in Bleach. It's kind of a shonen trope. I mean, obviously the power of friendship is a big one, but you'll see this in a lot of night. I particularly liked it in Soul Eater, where the idea was that all in Soul Eater they had living weapons as well, and they had to synchronize between them and the weapon. But that's sort of synchronization between two people. It's something that you'll see a lot in anime and manga, because the idea is that it's all focused on these bonds that people had, and if your bonds can literally be strength, that's cool. That's a trope. It's a thing that's done a lot because it's fun to read and it provides for character building moments. Anyway, we get back to Sentaro and Kiyone, who, of course, are Ukitake's two third seats, right? That they are the joint third seats here. And so we already have the idea of people kind of sharing a position of power, sharing in like something. And Sentaro is absolutely shrill. He's always very serious, very loud, takes his job very seriously. And I do like that here. We have him kind of trying to. He's giving this report from Ukitake, but essentially the idea is that the report tries to kind of make out that Hanataro was coerced, that he didn't decide to do all these things in act of treason, but instead he was forced into working with Ichigo and Ganju, so that maybe he'll be given a lighter sort of sentence or won't be considered as poorly. I love that Kiyone, who is just as gung ho as Sentaro, also finds him absolutely detestable and like can't stand how loud he is. Different ways people handle this. I love that Unohana just has this expression like, dude, will you shut up? Yeah, and she kind of sees through this. She's like, look, you're complicit in this. Like, as much as you want to say you were forced into this or not, you're still a part of all of this. And of course, the idea is that the reveal here is that Hanataro is essentially being questioned by the Fourth and being perhaps held a little accountable for his actions. We get to see, of course, more reminder of Izuru Kira here on our cover page. Great. Like, Kira usually gets depicted in these sort of like suffering ways. He's caught between a lot of different, like two different worlds, right? He's got this great admiration, and you get the sense of like duty to his captain, but then that comes at odds to the connection that he has with his friends, and maybe even some of the things he believes, especially if Ichimaru again is like a part of this larger conspiracy, and then he has to really choose between this duty to his captain and this duty to Soul Society, and his duty to himself. So his identity is really being tugged in these different directions. Again, the self in conflict, especially the self in conflict with society, is a huge theme in Bleach. And so we see that painted on Kira's expression. We see how it troubles him, how it knots up furrows his brow, how he's constantly contemplative and looking like he's made the wrong decision and regrets it. But all the same, his hand's on his sword. He's ready to do battle. He's ready to kill and die by the decision he's made. So, yeah, it's cool. I do like this illustration of Kira. I like there's like a good bit of Kira focus in this volume, and I think it's worthwhile because I think Kira represents in this moment all those things that I was just talking about, all these kind of character conflicts that a lot of our characters in the Soul Society are starting to kind of go through as it becomes clearer and clearer that the Ryoka weren't the ones that killed Aizen. We get back to our relief station, the Fourth Company, so we know that Hanataro is being questioned by the leader of the Fourth, Unohana Retsu. But meanwhile, we cut back, and I do like this kind of interstitial cutting, like I say interstitial, like, stuck between stories, but this kind of cut we pan in, we cut back to Uryu here. He's resting, he's recovering, he's wondering why he's still alive. We get this gag with Ganju where he looks like a mummy. If you remember, Ganju was absolutely eviscerated by Sinban Sakura, the Shikai of Captain Byakuya Kuchiki. So it makes sense that he's kind of all wrapped up, right? He got wounded all over. I do like, are you freaking out and wondering if he's a burglar? Kind of good expression work from a lot of our characters, right? I love Ganju's kind of expression in that middle panel there, where he's just like, "Oh, well, I thought the same thing about you, like about Uryu not being very strong." Whenever Uryu is the only character here who basically has killed a captain. Any other captain that wasn't Mayuri would have died from that encounter. So, had they been wounded the same way, right? Interestingly enough, he brings up, or he brings up like the concern right away, like, wait a minute, like we're the intruder, we're the enemy. Why are they treating us? Why are they taking care of us? Why are they putting us all in the same cell? And it seems like the reason why they're being rounded up is exactly what Chad professes to here. And of course, I love, like you get this. Kubo really likes doing these, like, sort of like, okay, the page ends with somebody off screen saying something. Who could it be? Turn page. Oh, it's character that you like. You know, he does that a lot, and he starts to learn to like do that also. For I say he learns to do that. It's also the sort of thing that he does for like kind of dramatic moments in chapters, like having that one kind of foot of a Shinigami following Aizen in the middle of the night, or you have the foot of whoever kind of coming after Orihime. Clearly, Orihime's been detained and brought here, so we can assume that it was somebody tied to the fourth, or at least someone that wasn't trying to kill her. Maybe someone from the 11th. I don't think it's clear. So yes, Chad is heard the guards talking about Aizen's murder. He's like, well, we're all the suspects, so of course we're going to be kept alive, which, as we know, is kind of Ukitake's doing. Ukitake's really pushing for the Ryoka not to be murdered, but instead to be kept for questioning. It seems like these handcuffs seal their spirit energy. Probably not something that would work on like a captain class character, but who's to say? Who's to say? There's all this different sort of binding that is present in Soul Society. We had the different kind of restraints used for Rukia, if you will remember, as well. I like that. I really do appreciate this moment where you have Uryu and he's remembering, like he's like, okay, so our energy's sealed, and he remembers what Soken had said about losing his powers, and there's like a bit of sadness on Uryu's expression here, but then we kind of cut to the chase. Ganju kind of comes to perhaps an erroneous, position of like, hey, look, if we're not dead, it probably means that the other ones are out there, right? And of course, Chad comes to the conclusion like, well, Orihime has probably been captured, and Ichigo is definitely going to come here. So let's just wait for Ichigo. Rest and recover. So this does, I love it. Yeah, great kind of like shading and detail on all of the characters here. Really good expressions, really serious kind of expressions that we have from everybody as they kind of rally, as we get conclusive sort of like, okay, well, this is where our other characters are at, so we can move forward with everything else. And especially with more things being pinned on Ichigo, especially, it really puts the forward thrust of the narrative on Ichigo's back. And yeah, I like that. Like, it really kind of gives a sense of urgency to Ichigo's involvement specifically, right? And of course, we jump back to Ichigo, and he's got to learn Bankai. I like that he's just like tossing the hilts of the swords that aren't working. Notably, the blade that Zangetsu is using here, like this kind of like notched one that resembles Zabimaru a little bit more. It wasn't the first one he's grabbed, but I think it was one that he had for a while. So it doesn't seem like his swords are shattering as often. I like that Ichigo grabs one that looks like, his old Zangetsu, and immediately they both shatter. And old man Zangetsu like expresses, it's feeble, cuts Ichigo with like what's left of the blade he has, and he expresses like, yeah, look, you need to find the one piece of your spirit that was made for fighting, right? Um, the one that you grabbed is just a reflection of, the part of you that tries to rely on my strength. So it's like, I do like that this idea that like there's these different reflections of Ichigo's soul, and that all these blades are made of his soul. They're all pieces of his spirit made manifest. I think, very cool stuff. This kind of manifestations that Ichigo has to find the one that is truly meant to do the killing, right? The one murderous aspect of his soul that's able to actually strike down old man Zangetsu. And of course, Ichigo can't tell the difference, right? He's unable to kind of parse between all these aspects of his soul. He just sees them all as weapons to rally against. But he needs to really, again, zero in on the murderous intent, zero on the true weapon that he can levy at his enemy. Of course, you know, time gets mentioned again. I do love this moment of Ichigo kind of pulling himself up by the blade, bleeding out through the chest, and he's ready to continue the fight. Yoriichi doesn't look all that enthused. We cut back, of course, sky area, old Maki Maki. It seems as though he's been picked up by Kusujishi, so a lieutenant or vice captain or assistant Yachiru Kusujishi. So maybe that was who the foot was in the previous one. But essentially picked up this guy, the 11th guy, who's acting real silly, but as we come to find out, it's because he feels like he has perhaps more of a connection to the assistant captain than he really does. I like, like her forgetfulness and like all that's played for gags, but I do appreciate it. So yeah. I guess whenever I say Kapachi's teaming up with him, he's really good teaming up with Orihime, who has been captured by the 11th, right? And I do like how kind of casually they're all hanging out. I really love, like Ikaku just kind of kicking it, like, oh, what do you think, Orihime? Like, just really referring to her pretty casually. And meanwhile, Yumachika, like, almost jealous over here, just like biting at his thumb, like, really in close study of Orihime, like, she's so pretty, like, right? Of course, Zaraki's quite excited. We get this big double page. I like that both he and his sword are wrapped now. His sword always had this sort of wrapping, but now that Zaraki does too, perhaps they are both a little more similar to each other. If you remember correctly, his sword did get broken, I believe, at the end of their encounter. And he expresses that he'll help out Orihime, and that if he sticks with her, then perhaps he will find Ichigo as well. I just love how massive, like, in this double spread, like, Orihime is just kind of sitting prim and proper in her seat, and Kenpachi is just this beast of a man. Like, she would be hardly above his navel if they were both to stand. It's ridiculous. It's certainly, like, exaggerated proportions, I feel, but Zaraki is a massive dude, so I do like this kind of bigger than life portrayal here. It's pretty cool. Um, yeah, I like that his bandages are on his face too, because if you remember, Zangetsu, Ichigo, they both cleave through his cheek. But yeah, let's see. So going to the next page, we have the very end where the thing that was said that made Khan absolutely sure he had to play for these kids is that he might get a copy of Bikini Busters, which will pop his eyes out of his head. And Khan, of course, being sexually driven the way that he is, he can't help but, can't help himself but help them, I suppose. Yeah, again, transitory chapter in many ways, like the previous one. We do learn a few new things. We do learn that little bit with Zengetsu. I do like like all these kind of shots of Zangetsu's like being out of frame as Ichigo's kind of frantically working his way to find the right sword. I love the sweep of his cloak and all the darkness here, and like the kind of like shattering that's happened. It's good stuff. Like lots of just energy to it. Good kind of character moments for our characters interacting there and just talking. Yeah, all of it's solid. It really doesn't like nothing hugely new is happening, but we do have again more of this transition towards the story that we're telling. So Ichigo is still struggling to earn his Bankai. All of our Ryoka characters are kind of joining back together and recovering, but they're pinning their hopes on Ichigo. And meanwhile, Orihime, who's been captured by the 11th, Zaraki decides, oh, well, I'll help you out. And maybe we can go and find Ichigo, right? So, kind of interesting stuff. As we see, the 11th has been sort of won over by Ichigo, in a way, through these battles, through these personal sort of connections. Orihime is offered a level of, safety and protection because she's going to help them reach Ichigo. And now, ultimately, it's probably for the point of, Zaraki wants to kill Ichigo. I mean, he wants to fight him, and as we know, Zaraki's fights are to the death. So, yeah, he wants to get stronger. He wants to see how Ichigo's gotten stronger. And Zaraki might just find that the next time he meets Ichigo, Ichigo could have Bankai, which, if Zaraki doesn't do anything to deepen his connection to his sword or become stronger, maybe even Zaraki, the strongest, physically strongest of all of the Shinigami, could be overtaken and defeated with ease. We'll see. We'll see. Certainly an Ichigo that's 10 times stronger than he was whenever he fought Zaraki would be quite a thing to behold if Zaraki was still just exactly at the same point, right? Anyway, yeah, all in all, cool chapter. I dig it. Not a ton going on, but we do get introduced to a couple of the new elements that we'll have present going forward. We get reminded of a lot of these other characters that we haven't seen for a long time. So this kind of does, like the end of the last chapter did a kind of round up on our Shinigami characters. It reminded us of Kira, of Momo, of Renji, and them moving forward in the different ways that they are. And so this reminds us of all of our kind of Ichigo main cast aligned characters, right? Of Hanataro, Orihime, the rest of the Ryoka, and where they are moving forward. So both these chapters kind of both present the Shinigami moving forward as well as the Ryoka moving forward and what their kind of plans are, where they're at, all of that. But it also all of that gets kind of pinned with Ichigo having this momentum that involves all of them. So it's cool stuff. I like this as like just kind of a setup for what we'll be getting later on in this volume. If there's anything that you've noticed, if there's any part of this chapter that you'd like to talk about, please do let me know in the comments. But otherwise, let us get into spoilers. Let's get into how this connects to the rest of the manga. As we know, Hanataro doesn't get punished too deeply here, though Unohana's capacity to see through the bullshit is certainly, I think, reflective of not just kind of her serious, like her past and her like kind of more serious nature, but also is something that we will see reflected whenever she's able to kind of properly discern everything going on with Aizen, right? Yeah, we also learned that, of course, Hanataro is the 7th seat of the 4th company. That's cool. Anyway, a higher seat than I expected Hanataro to hold, honestly. Of course, connecting back to the rest of our characters, I don't know that there's really that much else to say here, because I'm pretty sure for the rest of this arc, Ganju, Chad, and Ryu all just kind of don't do anything. I don't remember them doing much from here on, so having this kind of coda moment where they're like, well, we'll just wait for Ichigo. Like, that's fine. That's the last we're going to see of them for a while. Yeah. Of course, this idea of like Ichigo and all these different swords, and Ichigo trying to find the one that's shaped right, where he's concerned with the shape, and again that like ends up being false, and so this notion of the way something looks doesn't actually reflect the truth of it, and that Ichigo could have the false thing by the way that it looks. Of course, old man Zangetsu, he looks like he should be Ichigo's, the Zenpakuto spirit, but that looks are deceiving, So I like that gets reflected there. And of course, Shattered. And you get to see a little bit of Yuha in this. Like these moments where Zangetsu, who is quite a talented sword fighter himself, which of course Old Man Zangetsu and Yawak share that obviously, but then like these kind of moments of that was feeble, like that kind of thing, and cutting down Ichigo, and giving these kind of big sweeping statements. That's definitely some Yuha Bach energy, right? Also, this idea that like all the blades are a piece of your spirit, right? And they're all like some reflection of him. I think it's common to kind of read this as like a Zenpakuto related manifestation, and I think that's fine. But again, the idea of manifesting something external to yourself, especially an aspect of your spirit. So, like, manifesting reishi into other things is a Quincy ability. Manifesting aspects of your own spirit, especially to enhance your own physicality, is a hollow ability. Ichigo's ability to manifest, and I mean ultimately Zangetsu's ability to manifest all these swords, is reflective of tapping into Zangetsu at this point being equal parts reflective of hollow and Quincy powers, right? The reason why a Bankai is a big transformative manifestation is because the hollow is manifesting its soul into the physical world, right? And that transforms the sword. Like it's a hollow ability, right? Shinigami have the ability to resonate with those souls and to draw upon their reishi. That's what Shikai is. Shinigami have the ability to form their own reishi into these different spells using different incantations. But the idea of manifestation, especially of manipulation of reishi external to oneself, those are Quincy and Hollow abilities through and through. And so this whole like, oh well, yeah, I just manifested all of these blades that are pieces of your spirit, like yeah, like that's not something that like a character that's not a Hollow or Quincy would be capable of. So at least in my understanding of the powers of Bleach. So I like that this is yet more kind of reflection of Ichigo as a non-standard kind of person in this world. But at this point, whenever you're just reading naturally, you can just read this as like, well, we don't know that much as readers about Shinigami. We don't know that much about like the like what is and what isn't, and Zangetsu certainly seems a bit idiosyncratic. And because this is our introduction to all of that, we can assume, oh well, maybe that's just something that your Zenpakuto can do, you know. But as we come to learn, as we learn all the different rules of this universe and these powers, it becomes very clear just how idiosyncratic, how unique Zangetsu is, and moreover, Ichigo is, and these powers are not Shinigami powers. Also, the idea that like you have to find the one piece that was made for fighting, right? The one piece of your spirit made for fighting, because Ichigo's not meant to protect, right? Like as much as he wants to protect, he has to use this blade with no guard that's meant to absolutely make Ichigo into the sacrificial sort of weapon. Um, completely on the offensive. And the idea is that, of course, he is to have this blade that is made to strike down Yuha. So, yeah. Now, you get this shot of this like one panel of Yorichi just arms crossed watching this happen. And I like how she's like, "Oh, y'all, I'll use my powers of the tension tie to keep him here for the 3 days." But like here, like I get the sense that like she just understands how absolutely like wild this situation is. Like to an extent, I think she gets the sense that this isn't a typical Zanpakuto training. Um, Certainly, like yes, stabbing your Zanpakuto in the tension tie and letting the hollow manifest itself. Um, the hollow does become a reflection of your soul, and then taming it certainly is the thing. But like from forming all these blades and this interaction with Old Man Zangetsu, I think Yorichi maybe to an extent, especially this is the first time anyone other than Ichigo has seen Old Man Zangetsu. Yorichi, if she knows what Yuha Bak looks like, she might be like having some red flags go up right now. And that's kind of the like read that I get from her expression, is that like she's starting to sort of piece together exactly why Urahara tapped Ichigo the way that he did. Yeah, Maki Maki. I do like, like this reflection of Zaraki in Yachiru here. So like this idea of like, where she's like, well, we found Orihime because she had similar spiritual pressures, so like of course I was gonna check it out. Like I want to find Ichigo, and like I'm not gonna remember you, no name, nobody. like this kind of like I don't know, like one like tunnel vision and all those sorts of like aspects that like these are like character traits that Zaraki himself has, but are filtered through the idea of like what if Zaraki was a cute little girl, like that's Yachiru like to a T. So I love that Yachiru always reflects like some aspect of Zaraki, but played like for like cute effect. But her willingness to kind of like not kill your Orihime and kind of go along with things certainly, I think, is reflective of the sensibilities that Zaraki is going to be having moving forward. Um, yeah, yeah. Of course, you know that's that's what we got. That's all we got. That's all there is here. I don't know. There's not much else to kind of talk about. That's the chapter really. Um, if there's any other connections that you found that you see that you want to draw, please let me know. I mean, obviously, Zaraki being featured in a chapter that heavily features. I mean, I say heavily, but compared to other chapters, Zaraki featuring in a chapter with Unohana, of course, is maybe a little wink and a nudge towards the connection that they have. Zaraki being all bandaged, similar to his sword, and both of them kind of being in a state of like repair is cool. That kind of reflection of the two of them that way. Um, yeah, yeah, that's really all I gotta say. I mean, there isn't much else there. Um, it's cool stuff, and it's stuff, and it's stuff, and it's stuff. Love the way that Zaraki's looking here. Anyway, that's it for the chapter. Thank you for getting through this video. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for perhaps even enjoying this video. And if you did, certainly, please do give me a like on the video, just to show that you got here to the end. I do appreciate that. Otherwise, if you'd like to also support the channel in other ways, one of the big things you can do is supporting via the Patreon. I do have links in the description for every episode. And yeah, for as little as $1, you can lend your support of the channel. Your name will be featured here in the credits. And as always, thank you so much to the people that are supporting. This has been Karakura Gold, reminding you that spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.